Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting edition of Steelers Dynasty Podcast. I'm the host, Bad Bubba Brewer, and here's special field correspondent Shane Stodmiller, the guy who's now hosting so many podcasts he can't shake a stick at. Shane, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Now that the schedule's out, I love it. You hate it. We'll talk about
it already. I hate it already. We're gonna talk about it tonight.
Let me hype this guy up. I love this guy. I watched his I watch his stuff. I read his articles. I'm a huge West Virginia fan, so that's probably why he goes. I put him over so much. But he knows as much about the Steelers as he does about the Mountaineers, and we have him here tonight, and we're going to test his knowledge.
Yeah, I'm so honored to have him on here because now I feel that we have broke the fourth barrier of the wall of actually Steelers journalists in the Western Pennsylvania area. I mean, he serves as the manager editor of WV Sports Now. He has his own podcast. He's also the lead host for Pittsburgh Sports Live. He's also an editor and contributor to Steelers Now. So this is legit, ladies and gentlemen, here on Steelers Dynasty Podcast. This ain't Bubba and Shane just going off. He's also on Trib Live Radio, WPXI TV he's been on, and he's been on 93.7 The Fan, and he also contributes to Sirius XM's Big 12 channel. So, I mean, he's doing everything. So, Shane, since you brought him on, I want you to introduce him because it's the WV connection here on the
Mike Asti. He needs no other introduction. Let's bring him on.
There he is. Mike, welcome to the show.
How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay until I saw that schedule, though.
Yeah. Well, we got it released throughout the day. You got little bits and pieces, but I appreciate the introduction there. And yeah, I forgot a lot of my bios are out there. So you guys, you did the work. You looked up my bio. You're able to. You didn't even ask me, so that works. I will say some of that is older than other stuff there. I also do some national writing for Yard Barker. I can promote, and my podcast there is the Mic Drop Podcast. So that is where you get your podcast, Apple, Google Play, etc. Also is with the Believe Network, and sometimes on Sirius as well. But yeah, I do. I was on a West Virginia show with Shane. I do cover the Mountaineers for WV Sports Now, Pittsburgh Sports Now. I'm involved.
How long have you been covering the WVU Mountaineers?
So I'm an alum. So I covered in college, doing college radio for several years, and wrote for the student paper for a little bit as well. So I did that. Then it kind of broke up where I was doing to give like a brief synopsis of my career. I did a lot of high school coverage, did high school play-by-play and color commentary for high school football in this area for a network that used to be around called the Champ Sports Network, things like that. Then I was with PXI, did the Trib Live Radio, ran Trib Live Radio for several years, called games for Robert Morris, did a NCAA tournament run with their women's team. And then that's kind of matriculated to what I'm doing now that you kind of offered everybody. But in the middle there, I was doing a lot of Pittsburgh coverage, and I still am doing Pittsburgh shows, doing Pittsburgh coverage. But in the last few years, I went back to covering the Mountaineers as well, kind of running the WV Sports Now, the West Virginia side of the Pittsburgh Sports Now kind of empire of sites with Steelers Now that I was a part of. And they have a Nittany Sports Now, Pittsburgh Sports Now covers Pitt. So I run the West Virginia coverage. That's been going on probably 3 years now. So I hit a little bit of a downturn there with Neil Brown. It's picking up a little bit again. But back when I was in school, it was booming with Pat White and company. So that kind of shows my age a little bit. But yeah, it's been a lot of Pittsburgh covered, a lot in the region, a lot of broadcast, a lot of writing. And then I've got back into West Virginia coverage a little bit professionally now the last few years.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. What is harder, doing West Virginia stuff or doing the Steelers, or doing both at the same time?
I will actually say, so an NFL beat is usually the hardest because there's so much going on. It never sleeps. That's part of how the schedule is released at 8 p.m. on a weeknight, and you get news throughout the day. The NFL never sleeps. So there's an argument that's the toughest beat for a reporter, even though I'm involved in commentary and shows and things like that for everything. But I will argue now, in the last few years, it's harder to cover a college program because of the transfer portal. So covering a college program is not just going to games. You're covering the news of the program, and that involves covering football and basketball. I was involved in covering the Bob Huggins drama and all of that. There's been a lot of drama the last year. And then you're covering high school recruiting, kid commits. Do you really believe him? Tomorrow he could decommit. Not until they signed does it really matter, but it's also year-to-year free agency, like in pro sports where you're looking at the portal. Players could be at one spot 1 year, another spot the next year. It's a lot to handle. Just think, just hypothetically, if somebody was covering Colorado when Deion Sanders got there, they turned over 70 players. That's more than NFL teams turn over for sure.
Yeah.
Well more than what an NFL roster would be, and even before camp. And then they're turning that over on a college program. So I just think of what that would be. And West Virginia's kind of dealt with that a little bit in the last few years. So I would actually think, I could argue there's a lot more going on covering a college program now, even though the NFL is certainly not easy and there's always a lot going on.
Well, you answered my question in depth also.
He has more, like, he understands what's the pulse of NFL now.
Sure.
Whereas it's just some few minor tweaks here and there, like, the kickoff changed or,
right.
But with college football, I mean, I used to get really geeked up recruiting time. I used to nerd out and get
It's
sweaty.
hard now. It's harder for fans now, for sure.
Can't do that now. It's like,
I mean, at least there's windows now with the portal, because there was a year where there was really nothing to stop anybody. There's at least windows now, but there's multiple signing day periods.
Mhm.
It really never has a lull. Like, even now, it's finally a little bit of a lull, but there's a lot of recruiting going on. I mean, at least there's not as much drama as covering West Virginia that existed last year, because this was in the height of all of that. I think the year anniversary was last week of all of that going down initially with Huggins.
So what happened last year is indicative of, you think it's a lull, and then there's a big coaching shift and opens up a 50-day window. And sorry, fans, we're going into this, but this really has to do. I mean, the college football is becoming the mini NFL. I mean,
100%. 100%.
But also too, guys. To me, like, I'm getting so much. When we get to the Steelers schedule, I'm going to be a little upset. But with college football, you have your Thursdays and your Saturdays.
Sure.
Like, it's, sometimes they're not playing Sundays. They're not playing. The only time they play Monday, maybe the playoffs or the championship. Yeah. Like, it's
Big 12 wants to play Friday now, by the way.
Oh God. See, that's just, but it would compete with high school. I
know.
Football.
That's why. That is why the coaches don't want to do it. That would suck. You would be competing with high school. 100%.
Yeah, I just think sometimes it's a little too much. Like, I'm okay with watching college like on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday night, and then all day Saturday, however it is. Like, this NFL stuff is just getting to me. It's just, I love the NFL because I'm more NFL knowledgeable with the Steelers, and that's the only really team I actually care about, Mike. And Shane does the West Virginia. And like I said before we went on, Shane is the logic to the reasoning here, because sometimes I have no logic or reasoning when I decide stuff. But
it works. I mean, if fan stands for fanatic, so
yeah. But I mean, I would want to watch like West Virginia or college, and it's just more in depth sometimes, and what you're getting when you're watching a college program, because now the NFL, it's just taking over every day.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. The NFL is news every single day. They made the draft season a longer process, moving back the draft years ago. You get schedule unveiling, award ceremonies. Obviously, the advent of social media has been a major part of this. You get everyone's opinion, everything. It's just constant. NFL Twitter or NFL X rages every second of the day. So the NFL is the top dog. College football is up there. But the NFL is the top dog. The NBA kind of flirts with competing at different times because there's so much drama and people know individual players more than teams. But Major League Baseball, the NHL is not even close. The NFL is that behemoth. And I always say, and people hate this, the NFL is that one league. It can get away with anything. And I'm sure we're going to get into this, but everyone's annoyed about the schedule and how you have to have Netflix my wife brought this up. We have Netflix, honey. We're good. But you got to have Netflix to watch on Christmas Day, or now they're going to be on Christmas Day, or you had a playoff game on Peacock, Amazon, streaming. You got to have 6 different platforms to watch all these games. The NFL knows. Yeah, it's annoying. Yes, they're doing it for money.
Everybody's going to pay.
You're going to do it. You're going to complain about it on this podcast. And then tomorrow you're going to make sure you're subscribed to every one of these platforms so that you can watch the games, or certainly before kickoff. And that's what they knew. They have the record for a single event subscription of anything. and that happened off a playoff game on Peacock. So they can
that's
get
why
away
they did.
with
That's why they
anything.
decided in the offseason to go to Netflix, because now they got the the big Tyson fight
Right.
with the Logan the Paul guy, whatever his name is. I hope
Logan
Tyson
Paul
kills him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because now it's live, because they're trying to do a little bit more sports, and who's not gonna. It just how much, Mike, is too much.
Well, for me, I do think it's getting to be too much. I will tell you, and this would come from whether I'm there covering it as a media member or if I'm just watching as a fan. If it's up to me, I don't want the NFL on Christmas Day.
Good, because I don't either.
I'd like to have that be a day with my family, let it alone. However, they're not going to ask me, and they know that if people have to work it, they're going to work it. If people want to watch it, they're going to watch it, and everyone's going to be getting in fights with their wives and husbands because they're going to be trying to watch the game. That's going to happen. They know people will just do whatever and watch whatever and buy the merchandise. It's the same thing when fans. I remember years ago when the Steelers signed Michael Vick. I knew friends.
Remember.
A lot of people were like, yeah, I'm not going to watch anymore. And the same people were complaining all season long about every day in play, and they're still Steeler fans. They're still watching. People are there's almost an addiction to the NFL and to different teams, and Pittsburgh with Steeler fans. Same Green Bay with the Packers, Dallas with the Cowboys, franchises like that. But even all of the NFL franchises, historic or not, those fan bases are just never going to go away. They're never going to go away. And the fans are going to keep getting teased year after year. They're going to blow it in the playoffs. Steelers are going to keep, getting in and then saying we got to win a playoff game, and who knows if it's going to happen. And,
please!
They're not going to go away.
I hope.
Right, but the Steeler fans are not going to go away, and that's what makes them great. But the NFL knows all of that, and they can kind of just do whatever. So, but if it's up to me, I would like to leave things alone. I do remember years ago during the COVID year, if you guys remember, they did play an NFL game on Wednesday. That was that Ravens game that got rescheduled and scheduled 6 different times. So that was kind of a weird year because everything was all screwed up. But yeah, Wednesday was the one day, because there's always group of 5 games or MAC games, even in college football, that sometimes are on Tuesday. Certainly there's Thursday night football games now, major games, the NFL and college. Wednesday was that one day that nobody touched. Everyone left it alone. And then Friday, of course, you have some college, but it's mostly for high school. Now that's gone. But the NFL is going to, I guarantee if you ask somebody at the NFL, if you ask Roger Goodell, if you got him on this podcast, he would come out and say, the NBA's been on Christmas Day for years. Why is no one complaining about that? Why can they do it and not us? We're now going to compete with them in the ratings. And if I'm the NBA, I'm livid. They're going to go 1 p.m. against the NBA. NFL's going to win. They're going to win the ratings every time. Doesn't matter what game's on. And
if we ever the oil in the water here, I love it. The people that don't like it are the cats. Those are the guys and gals that buy out all the bread and milk when it snows. Just saying.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not buying any bread and milk when it snows. I'm comfortable.
I don't do that either. But also too, people for me, this is the first time in 15 years I actually schedule my life for Steelers football. I scheduled everything off. I scheduled every Sunday off for the whole season during my job, because I can't. It's hard for me to take off.
Okay.
And I don't like watching games at work. I am not focused. I'm focused on the Steelers, and that's it. Like, my wife is like, "You're too much." But especially with the Christmas, like now I have to work. I can't call off because everybody and their brother knows Bubba's called off because he's watching a Steelers
You got to work.
game.
You got to work Christmas Day.
I have to work Christmas Day. Yes, in my job.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had it off because I was like, 4:00 if the Steelers play, like that's a prime time game.
Yeah.
When we get into the schedule, that's a 4:00 or an 8:00 game. That is not a 1:00 game.
Yeah.
But
they're trying to hit the sweet spot of when people watch, because they see the NBA does very well ratings wise with afternoon Christmas Day games. So the NFL, I'm assuming, is aware of that, watch that, and is probably thinking to themselves, if I put on at 8 p.m., like there's always a primetime game at the end of Thanksgiving. The games on earlier, a lot of the time, do better in ratings. You would think no, because people are eating, but they're eating while watching. Or the TV's at least on, even if they're not actually watching it, so it counts as ratings. Once you get to 8, 9 p.m., people are passed out on the couch because of all the turkey. So they hit the 1 p.m. And again, this competes with the NBA, but they're not worried. They're not worried about it. This is not like the NHL.
Do you think they'll go to 8? Do you think the NBA will go to 8:00 now? because that'll be the sweet spot now. Because
well,
there's no
yeah, I
football game.
guess. I mean, I don't. I mean, they have more than one on Christmas Day. They usually are over at that point. I don't. I'm assuming a lot of their schedule's done in advance, so I don't know if they even can move it. But I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, maybe they feel like they have a sweet spot audience. They probably should. What I was going to bring up is I always have argued, like, I'm a hockey fan, but the Winter Classic and those events, they put them on New Year's Day competing with the Rose Bowl and major college bowl games and now the playoff. You're not going to beat those in ratings. You aren't. Be mature. You're not going to do it. So either move it to way at the end of the night or move it to another day. But the NFL doesn't have to worry about that like the NHL does, because the NFL knows we don't care what we are competing against. They could compete against a presidential debate and they feel like they would win. They are bulletproof. Is the
I
NFL.
think they're the juggernaut of media, of entertainment, of sports and whatever. But I mean, now Mark Benamati has a question. Do you think it'll get bigger? Like everything now might be getting streamed, like instead of like local channels, because like that Netflix Kansas City game and Steeler game is not going to be on channel 11 or channel 4. Yeah. So if the people don't get that and they got the old TVs and they don't have Netflix, they're gonna have to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, and this isn't a sales pitch for doing this for certain streaming apps, I have cut the cord on cable. So we cut the cord on cable a few years ago before any of this was going on, and it's actually financially sound. I have YouTube TV, I have Peacock, I have Amazon, I have Netflix for sure, and a couple others, and all of that together is less than a lot of cable packages out there.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting screwed financially. So the people that are complaining, you could get on a lot of these apps. You're probably spending more money on a cable package for 300 channels. And you'd be surprised, for anybody who's not aware, on what is available on YouTube TV by itself. Now, obviously, if the Amazon game, the Peacock game, Netflix, you need those apps. But you get NFL networks there, MLB networks there, NHL, NBA TV. You get all of that just on YouTube TV. There's also Sling. There's several other packages. It's a pain in the butt if you're trying to watch a Pirate game or a Penguin game, but there's different apps for that as well.
But I think Comcast is going to do stuff now where they're going to have these streaming apps on Comcast, and you're going to be able to pay for Netflix on Comcast at a lower tier.
I think
price,
they do that. I think my mom has it like that. I mean, we don't have Comcast, but I actually remember when we cut the cord, they tried to sell me on YouTube TV, and I was like, I already got it.
Yeah, I got some commission. I got stuff from like I got good, like I can watch a 49er game from my house. So it's that kind of cable.
Yeah, so like the point of it is there's this, if you really look into things, because there's 6 different ways to do this. You can even get an antenna when you have all your streaming platforms, and that's $30. You can watch all of these games, have all of these platforms, and not be paying more. There are ways that you can actually save money than have a cable package that would give you all these channels, because if you have cable, basic cable, you wouldn't get the NFL network. You wouldn't get some of those high priced channels. So you would have to get a step up package that would then give you the league networks, which then puts you into a bracket that is above what I'm paying based on all of these apps. And Netflix is annoying, but when you think about it, I could see more of an argument of being annoyed when the game was on Peacock. A lot of people have Netflix. Like Netflix has
700 million. I think 700 million Netflix.
Yeah, so like people have been having Netflix for a long time. Netflix has been around for a long time. Most of the people complaining probably have Netflix. I get the annoyance though, but again, if you don't like it, don't subscribe and tell all your friends to stop subscribing, because they put a test out there in the market that wasn't just done for nothing. When they put a playoff game on Peacock and saw a record number of subscriptions, that put all of this in their mind, and they just legitimized doing all of this. If that would have crashed and burned and they had nobody subscribing and the numbers were bad, they probably wouldn't do this. But they know they're going to make money. They're going to get subscriptions. Again, as I brought up earlier, it's the same thing that when people were mad about Michael Vick or different players for different things, they look at, okay, people are still buying their jersey. They're still watching the games. The ratings are still fine. There's still engagement on social media. So why should we really change? Now, of course, there's things you just have to do, but this is a business decision. And it is annoying. I wish they would stay away from Christmas Day.
Right.
I wish they would pick one platform. I wish they would just pick Netflix and throw them all there. It could be streaming, but not have to have 6 different platforms. but at the end of the day, we're all going to subscribe, and they know
Well,
it.
like Daniel said, I just want to see him play, and that's the case. Let me ask you another
true.
question, Mike.
100%.
How do you feel about these international games that the NFL does?
Yeah.
And like look at Jacksonville last year twice. They might as well be an international team.
They're in the game every year, crying out loud.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you feel about that?
I don't care that they do it, and I get that why they would do it. It's about globalizing the sport. It's a little different than, say, the NHL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, where you can have a lot of European players that can be stars, can even be Hall of Famers. The best player in basketball is not an American right now. However, that's harder in football because they're not ingrained in it. I do cover somebody at WVU, and Eddie Vestrin, who is from Finland. He's on the D-line. And he just talked about how it was never ingrained in him as a kid. It was hard. He had to watch YouTube clips, things like that. So it's hard to have European players make it in the league, but you still want to globalize. You still want to make the money. There's fans there. There's interest there. So I get playing there. And obviously you're getting money, you're getting interest, or it wouldn't make sense to keep doing it. The one thing that I am against, that I don't think they'll ever do, but they keep flirting with it, and I hope they don't do it because I think it would be a really big mistake, is put a team there.
Okay.
There's always
I don't want that either.
There's always rumors of putting a team in London. And London is always brought up for whatever reason. Mexico City is even brought up. Now, Mexico is North America. It might not be as bad. Like you've had teams in Canada, obviously, in pro sports. If you go to London, that is just, I'll already complain for those fans if any of them exist. That would be 100% unfair. Not only would it be unfair to that team in terms of travel, and I get that maybe certain parts of the country going to LA to New York would also be as far in terms of time, but you would have really no home base. You would have a real hard time getting fans that are ingrained in it, that are supporting it year after year, that are already there. You'd have to build from the ground up. It'd be going to an expansion market where the league has never been times 10, and you don't even have the same country of that support. Separate from travel, I don't even know how you would get players as free agents to want to go there. They would probably never want to go to that team and play for that team.
That'd be hard. That'd be super hard.
So it'd be hard for you to build a roster and be competitive and be good. Obviously, the way the draft works, somebody's going to get drafted there, but after their contract runs out, they're going to
roll it out.
Yeah, or the way the sports works these days, Caleb Williams, you would have him saying, "Oh, I refuse to play for London." You'd have someone pull an Eli Manning or John Elway. I won't go. And then you're going to end up getting your way if you're an athlete. That's how it works these days. So I think that would be really, really bad. That team would never be good. It would be at a giant disadvantage year in and year out. I don't think the fan base would support a team every week like it maybe would one game to go to a novelty act. I don't think they're going to do it, but if they ever did that, I would definitely be against it. But having occasional games there, and it does suck for the teams playing in it, though. There's always rumors of the Steelers being involved. There's always rumors. I have heard that maybe 2025, they're going to be really try to be pushed to be in it because usually, as you mentioned, they throw Jacksonville, they throw different franchises that maybe aren't as popular or as historic, but they try to get one historic one to go to. So the Steelers have been able to basically sit back and not be involved in this mess. And it's hard to believe that's going to go on forever. They've been able to get out of Hard Knocks. I will tell you right now. But I know for a fact the Steelers have been asked to be in Hard Knocks multiple times, and Rooney will not do it. So they have never been pushed to get in there, but eventually I feel like a solid's going to be asked. Like, you got to do this once. So there are rumors already about 2025 and the Steelers being involved in one of those. Not this year. Hasn't happened yet. We'll see. But putting a team there would be where I'd have a problem. You want to play them?
That's why I wanted to ask. And you actually, everything you said, I actually agree with, because I don't want to see a team over there anyway. I don't like when the last time the Steelers were over there, I think they played Minnesota and they were getting blown out, and then it was terrible. And it just,
I do remember that.
Yeah. It was god awful. And I just think the travel, I just think the fans over there, it's just a novelty that they see an NFL team and they're like, not get me wrong though. We have a buddy of ours in Australia that does a great podcast, Steeler Nation Australia. Shout out to Mark.
Australia fans are rabid, especially with the NBA, NFL. So maybe they would, but travel is just crazy.
And here's the thing with Bubba and Mike, I want to tell you about Mark. Mark started falling in love with the Steelers when in their heyday in like
Okay.
'05 when they were on the
Yeah.
way up on
Yeah.
the peak.
Right.
So, for a London-based program to build momentum, an NFL team,
Yeah.
you would have to set them up with kind of almost like like an extra incentive for the players not only to go there, but maybe a few extra draft picks so that they can be competitive early so they can build a fan base.
You'd have to do something. And what I would compare it to, it kind of has happened. Now, in the NHL, there have been recent expansion franchises, Vegas, Seattle, where the league kind of did that. I mean, they didn't give them players and give them extra picks, but they made it so though each team had to have a player that was available. That's how Marc-Andre Fleury got to Vegas, and that's a Hall of Fame goaltender that Vegas got thrown in their lap as an expansion franchise. The rules of the NHL 20 years earlier for Columbus and those franchises weren't like that. It almost was, here, your top pick in the draft, but that's all we're giving you. Figure it out. They were bad for decades. The NHL made it so Vegas could be good right away. Seattle was good right away, even though they weren't good this past year. Major League Baseball's had teams that got good right away. The Marlins won a World Series right away. The Diamondbacks won a World Series quickly in. Obviously, there's no salary cap there. They can just buy players. But the other leagues have done it. They have done that kind of, where they made it so the expansion teams can be good right away at different points. They would probably have to do that. But I honestly think that even if they did something like that, it's one thing to have an athlete take a deal and play for Cleveland or something, even if he doesn't really want to live there, but that's paying him the most money. It's a totally different thing to ask them to go to London. Like, it's different culturally. It's different for their families. It is a professional job for these athletes, as much as we're invested. And that's why people get all burn someone's jersey when they leave. Mm-hmm. It's their job. I've had athletes admit to me, I care about this being my job more than winning. Sorry. Like, that is true. That is the case.
Let me ask you another question that we have in the comments here. Now, the international games, like, if you're a season ticket holder, you would be seriously upset if your team is over there, but maybe you would get a deal and the tickets won't be as much for a yearly season if the team that you are buying season tickets for or over there, so maybe you get a better price. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how that works on the season ticket holder perspective. It wouldn't be forced upon you as part of your season tickets in terms of home games like it is with the preseason. You have to go to the preseason games or at least take those tickets in addition to getting the regular season games. But you're kind of getting screwed. Yeah, you're getting screwed out of a home game, or even if it's a road game for you, it's a different type of travel in terms of jet lag and everything else. Ooh. And even if they're making it so if you play on Thursday, you're not having to play until 10 days later, because they try to do the schedule that way where you're getting more of a break, even though it's not a bye. Yeah. But still, it's rough. And very rarely do any of those teams do well in those given years. A lot of the time, players have said that those situations have made it harder on them for weeks on end, and that was why they had bad years. That's just – it's never going to go away because they know there's money to be made there. But as long as they don't have an expansion team, I think it's fine. But once you go in that neighborhood,
it's going to be bad.
And I don't even know if I'd advocate any of the leagues doing that. It's one thing to go to Canada. I could see you stay in North America, okay.
Mexico, maybe.
Yeah, Mexico, maybe you should maybe do more there. Obviously, that hasn't been like Canada with pro teams. But having a pro team in London or in Europe who's playing in a North American league, whether it's the NFL, NBA, NHL, or Major League Baseball, that just seems too crazy. That just seems wild. But to be fair, if podcasts existed in the 1950s, people back then thought it was wild to have teams in California. So they did, and it's worked, and now it's just part of the norm. But that just does seem a step beyond. You also would have a difference of money and how money works. Obviously, there's different tax brackets. That's why certain players go to certain markets and want to play for certain teams because of the way taxes work. So they take a lot more of your money in California than, say, they do in Florida or Texas. But how does it work for a London athlete? How would any of that work? You'd be getting in a whole nother mess there with the
it'd be economics 101 overseas. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we were just speaking about Mark from Australia, and look what happens. He shows up. Mark, welcome, Mark. He had a thing on his channel. Did you see that, Shane? That somebody was bashing his Steeler knowledge, people like keyboard warriors bashing him
because they said unless you grew up in the 412 area code, or have a mom and a dad or a grandpa that love the Steelers, you can't be a Steelers fan.
That's right. There's so many fans that aren't like that. I mean, I've met so many fans around the country. Everyone has that have no connection at all. That are just Steeler fans. So
that's why they say the Steeler. It's universal.
It's one of those franchises. Why. Yeah. I mean, it's like the Cowboys, Packers. People are Packer fans that never have been to Green Bay.
Exactly.
I have friends that are Packer fans that never been to Green Bay. So it's the Steelers are the same thing. And with this culture, with social media and the internet, obviously, you can be a fan and know about the team without living in the area, whether you're in Australia or whether you're an hour away.
I just want to say, Mark is the most positive Steeler fan I know, even in the depths. If we lose, he is it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. Like he shakes it and he's off and he's ready to go. And it's proven facts.
That's uncommon for some Steeler fans.
Steelers fan, the 5% is only because he's not negative enough.
Okay.
Once you get that other 5%. But hey, guys, let's get into the schedule.
Let's get into the schedule. And the schedule is, which I'm not very happy on some of it, but now the Steelers open up the lovely schedule here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get to the right thing so we're not.
I see it. Do you see it?
Okay. The Steelers open up two away games, Atlanta and Denver.
Yeah.
Wow.
And obviously, that as it is every year, the Steelers usually open up on the road, but a lot of that has to do with the Pirates schedule. People hate that.
Okay.
But that is why, if you've noticed, for about 10 years now, the Steelers, except for one time maybe, the Steelers usually do open up on the road. That has to do with the Pirates schedule. There's kind of intrigue there. Look at it. It's the Arthur Smith's revenge game and then the Russell Wilson revenge game. That's back-to-back. Arthur Smith didn't have a great tenure as a head coach in Atlanta, but he also didn't get Kirk Cousins, didn't get Michael Penix Jr., didn't get half the pass rush they drafted this year. That roster wasn't nearly good enough for him, and they kick him out of town. And then Russell Wilson has his career flounder, has an okay year, how do you think he's going to, and then really bad 2 years ago?
Mike,
I think it's an upgrade from what it was. Okay. Yeah, so Russell Wilson obviously is a borderline Hall of Fame guy. He's probably not going to get there because of how bad the Broncos' tenure was. But he was building that case for a while from what he was with Seattle and was so great earlier in his career when he was on a rookie deal and they could build so much around him. You could say what you want about him personality-wise, but he had to make a lot out of maybe he was carrying portion of Seattle for a while there towards the end of their run. You get to Denver, and he wasn't good, for sure. He definitely was not good 2 years ago at all. It was the worst year of his career. Last year, I think he was better than some people give him credit for, including Sean Payton. I think he was okay. He certainly wasn't a Pro Bowler.
Can you see this one? 9-0 going into week 11.
Wow. Wow. I will guarantee it's not 9. I will guarantee 9-0 doesn't happen. Wow.
God bless you, brother.
Wow. But I do think Russell Wilson is an upgrade over. Look at it this way. Kenny Pickett threw 13 TDs in 2 years.
Terrible.
2 years, 13 TDs. Mason Rudolph, I think, honestly, a little bit maybe got a raw deal from some fans, but he's not a franchise QB. He's not a franchise QB. He's a backup QB. He did okay when in there last year. Certainly saved the season a little bit, but he's not going to take you to the promised land either. Certainly not Mitch Trubisky either. And going way back, Duck Hodges wasn't going to get it done either. His numbers are worse than Mason. You get into now where you have a quarterback that's been there, done it before. It's a veteran presence. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work out and he's what he was in Denver 2 years ago, or he's worse than last year, or everybody that says he really was bad last year and that I'm overrating him is right and he just flat out sucks, they're on the hook for like $1 million. The Broncos are paying most of that deal because of how bad it was and how they cut bait with him, and Sean Payton kicked him out, and they took basically a hit salary cap wise to go in salary cap hell to get rid of him, and they didn't care. They just didn't work out personality wise. But no matter who's at fault, he's an upgrade from Pickett and what was going on in the past.
Do you think
and
that
if
was
it doesn't
the biggest,
work, it doesn't work.
Do you think was the biggest bust ever in Steelers draft history?
Kenny Pickett?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, that's hard to say because there's definitely been some busts. You could even argue Devin Bush in recent memory. They traded up to get Devin Bush. I was hosting a draft show actually at the time. Everybody was surprised they actually did it because even though everyone knew the Steelers were interested in Devin Bush at the time, they never traded up to get players. That was more aggressive than the Steelers ever have been. They were very high on Bush at that point. I covered him at rookie minicamp that year. He was calling out plays before he ever walked into the facility. He knew the plays. He was an intelligent. It seemed like he was a future backer of the future for that franchise. And then all of a sudden the wheels fell off. He got hurt. I think he played scared not to get hurt again. He became a mental basket case, of course, on social media. He posted videos of a cat dying. It was a mess. And you could argue Devin Bush. Because he's a quarterback, maybe you want to say Pickett, but I will tell you, I thought him as a first-round pick was a bit of a reach at the time. I like Pickett. I think he was a good guy. He was a great college QB. He obviously had a great run at Pitt, closed out. He was a deserving Heisman candidate, all of that. I'm not trying to hate on Pickett because I cover West Virginia, for example. But first round, he was the only first-round quarterback taken in that draft, the only one. I know for a fact the Steelers, for some reason, thought he was going to be taken earlier and he wouldn't be around, which is why they signed Trubisky earlier in that offseason. Pickett kind of fell to them, and then they couldn't resist because he was the hometown kid, even played in college at Pitt. But I never really thought he was that worthy, and he just didn't improve. But, I mean, if you go to a Steelers historian, there's been other great busts. Okay. He's a QB, so maybe that could be the answer. Okay. Devin Bush is 1-2, but they were able to be mature with Omar Khan now, who got aggressive. They changed the whole room up. I will tell you that if Kenny picked, the plan initially was, okay, we need to improve things. They wanted to bring Mason back. He wanted to get more money. It probably was never going to happen. Once they realized that, the plan was, well, we can bring in Russ. He's a veteran. We feel he was better than what Sean Payton thinks. We don't have to pay him hardly any of the money. The Broncos pay most of it. We'll bring him in. There's low risk here. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then Pickett can learn from him and maybe can steal the job in midseason. They can work together. All of that. That was the plan. It doesn't matter what you believe about the end of the year and whether or not he wanted to be a backup in that report that's out there that I actually have heard too, or no matter what, you can be a Pickett stan. That was the plan. That was the plan. And then Pickett got in his feelings. He came off entitled and didn't even want to compete. And that's why they said, you're too much trouble. You're more trouble than you're worth. And they were able to get Justin Fields for only a 6th-round pick instead of the rumors of it being a 1st or a 2nd months earlier. If it was a 2nd or a 1st, they never would have done it. They never would have done it. They got aggressive, but they were able to fall into these things that benefit them too. And again, if Russell sucks, you can go to Fields, who had a great run at the end of last year. He's also a 1st-round pick. You're not risking that much. There's not tons of money tied into these guys. You didn't pick up the 5th year for Justin Fields. Why not try this year? If they trotted out Pickett and Mason again, it would be 9-10 wins at the most. They would lose in the 1st round again. And this offseason started, unlike the last few, where Rooney came out and said himself, not fans, not media, he said, I'm sick of losing playoff games right away. We got to win one. So if that's the directive, that's why they changed the room and they were so aggressive, and even with other moves as well. And the Deontay trade can be part of that. So I do think it's an upgrade. It was almost a situation of why not try this? If it doesn't work, it's not hurting you that much.
Yeah, and I know Mr. Nolan there, he said, people underestimated the Steelers in free agency in the draft. Steelers won 10 games with no quarterback and OC. I mean, you're right on that. You're right on that.
Yeah. Again, I mean, obviously Matt Canada was rough. Got a little bit better at the end, but that was terrible. Yeah, 100%. I don't think anyone will disagree with you there. Nope. The only thing I can agree with in some argument with Pickett is I would have liked to see him have a few games without Matt Canada. He had one and then got hurt, but oh well. But yeah, that season was not really ever going to go anywhere. Even everyone knew going in the playoffs, okay, they get in, but they're not going to win that game. I do agree about the draft too. I think the Steelers had a great draft. I think they have one of their better drafts in recent years, and I have never talked to a colleague or fan that has not liked that recent draft from the Steelers just a few weeks ago.
And this is crazy, Mike, and I've said this on this show a couple times. I believe that the Steelers are going to run maybe over 2,500 yards this year or more. I believe that, as crazy as it sounds, because I'm looking. The
O-line should be better. Warren's good. Najee Harris finally got into himself last year. Gets healthier. Should be better.
A little bit of Patterson and a little bit of Fields and Wilson. Those two quarterbacks are still running quarterbacks.
There's still a little. I don't know about it. I don't think much Wilson now. He's older than what he was. Fields could if he gets in there, but if you're predicting the 9-0, they're not going to be putting Fields in. So it's what do you want? If you want Fields, you can't win all those games.
I'll take. Well, we got open up. We open up with the Chargers. I don't know. We'll see. And I don't give my picks until later on. Okay. And then the Colts. That's an away game. Now, the big game is, the Cowboys haven't been to Pittsburgh in such a long time, and that's a Sunday night game. So those tickets are going to be astronomical, and that's going to be prime time. And hopefully we, do what we need
and
to
then
do.
Another Sunday night game 2 weeks from then against the Jets. Like a lot of primetime games for the Steelers, which they get every year.
And then they got a Monday night right after that against the Giants. And then they got the bye.
Right.
So I'm guessing the bye is the first week in November.
Which is a nice bye time. I think this is a good bye week. It's kind of middle of the season. You get through a couple tough games and primetime games. Obviously, if you lose those, you're gonna need to reboot yourself and kind of shake the cobwebs off. If you win those, you can be riding high and get healthier after getting banged up for a few weeks. So I think that's a good bye.
As soon as the bye, you got Washington, and then you got this smorgasbord of ultra. This is unreal. Don't know if I've ever seen it like this. You got
4 straight
interdivision opponents in the middle, and then we got to go out to Philadelphia where we haven't won since the Eisenhower administration.
And then Baltimore again.
And then we go the Christmas Day debacle that we've been talking about, which I hate. I don't mind it, but not on Christmas Day because I had to work. And then you end it with the Cincinnati Bengals to be announced. Like this is the hardest thing I think I've ever seen. I'd say in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, having it, here's the reason why. Because I will always caution fans. The one thing I do hate that always exists is the schedule projection 6 months in advance and saying this team has the hardest strength. We get this a lot in college football.
Right.
The hardest strength of schedule or the easiest strength of schedule. And then you go into the season and a team you thought was going to be good sucks. A team you think is going to suck ends up being really good. It happens in the NFL all the time. So I know the Steelers are up there in terms of strength of schedule and how it'll be. I believe it's the third toughest right now. Yeah. But all those teams on that schedule there. Okay, put them all up. Some are going to be good that you thought were going to be good, right? But some you thought were going to be good are going to be bad. If we were doing this show a year ago, everybody would have said that Bengals game is going to be rough. Right. But then Burrow gets hurt, they don't go anywhere. So you don't know. You're going to have a team, this happens every year, in that mix that you can guarantee me won't be good, and they'll be good. And it won't make sense. It happens every year in the NFL. That's why everyone loves the NFL, that it is the one league overall. Look at the NBA. There's about 6 teams that have a chance a year. Same thing across, maybe even less. Same thing across the board in every other league. You look at the NFL, and every fan believes, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, whoever, they believe they have a chance if certain things go right, because there's examples of teams going from 3 wins to a championship. It's happened in the history of the league repeatedly. So with that said, it's hard to know how tough it'll be. But what I will say, to agree with what you're saying, Bubba, 4 straight divisional games, I don't care how good or bad those teams are. I don't care how much of a mess maybe the Browns are going to become. I don't care about the injuries. I don't care what goes on with Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. Those are always tough games. All the time. So even if those teams aren't good, they're going to be tough games. And at minimum, you got to split them. At minimum, you got to split them.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, 100%. At minimum, got to split them.
And the sad part, like I'm going to go back to the schedule real quick. Like the Eagles, Ravens, and the Chiefs game in a 10-day span. Those 3 teams in a 10-day span. That's
it's right. I mean, because as much as you don't know how good teams are going to be, I'm willing to bet money the Chiefs are going to be very good. I'm willing to bet money the Eagles are probably going to be very good and be at least a contender. They would have even been better last year if they didn't putter away the season. But things like that can happen. The Eagles were they 10-1 to start the year last year, and then they kind of collapse at the end. Maybe you'll catch them on a collapse. So you just don't know. Some of this is also done off intrigue and obviously for TV. There were rumors maybe that Broncos game was going to be later in the season.
Nolan.
Some thought week 1. You have to put it early in the year because I think Denver's going to be bad. And if you get it in week 17, like was a rumor yesterday, that's going to be a game people might not care about. Maybe they're Sean Payton's, trying to put in backups. Having the schedule the way it is, you get intrigue early in the season. You get divisional at the end that everyone's going to care about. You have the Christmas Day. Taylor Swift's going to be involved, of course.
Yeah, right here.
Taylor Swift. On your graphic.
Right here. There we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
This is my question for you, Mike, okay?
Some great Photoshop. Yeah.
I always I know, thanks. So last time you were on the show with me, I asked you a question and I told you to take off your journalistic hat.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
how excited are you? And then you wrote a great. See, Bubba, I can't articulate it like Mike could. He drafted this wonderful article on would you rather have, the rather have article. It was fantastic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah.
Take your hat off.
Yeah.
Now you're a fan. How excited are you to have Taylor Swift in Pittsburgh?
Well, Taylor Swift's been in Pittsburgh. She had her concert recently, a year ago. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's cool. It's gonna be unavoidable. As much as some people might get annoyed by the coverage being so much about Taylor Swift, it's gonna happen again. I haven't heard anything
from her since the Super Bowl. I don't even know if she exists right now. Like after the Super Bowl, she poofed. She can take. If you just look at the revenue that happened just when she was at Acrisure, she could take a break all year. So she could. If I was her, I would take longer of a break than she's been. And Jason could do Jason and Travis can do a podcast, and then you can go do whatever. Yeah, she's obviously going to bring intrigue to a game separate from football. And maybe the coverage won't be as rabid and insane and polarizing as it was when she first started dating a member of the Kansas City Chiefs and a future Hall of Famer, but maybe it still will be. So it is kind of cool to be involved in all of that and see how that's going to go. I'm sure it's going to be wild and be a mess, but I also don't buy in that Taylor Swift's going to affect the game. I mean, well, if you're watching it on TV, you might be annoyed by some Taylor Swift comments that are being made. But I will say that kind of got lesser and lesser as the season progressed. So I will be interested to see what it is next year. The broadcasters were saying her name less as the season went on in some of those games. But yeah, it's an interesting, cool thing to have. Not only do you have her in a game against the Steelers and have the representation with the Chiefs, but it's on Christmas as well.
You're going to see it on night. It's going to be everywhere, and it's going to be at Christmas. It's going to be fun.
She might even sing the national anthem. She might come out and sing the national anthem in Heinz Field, because to me it's always Heinz Field.
Yeah.
And then there's ratings right there because she's singing. So at 1:00, even the ratings are going to go skyrocketing.
She might, but then she can't. Yeah, that would be great. But then she can't sit in the suite.
She can't in the suite.
And then do the heart thing with Kelsey or wherever they do that. And maybe she won't because she's turned down the Super Bowl. It's almost like she is so big that she's above doing what you're saying. Yeah. She almost can basically say, I am so big. I'm literally Michael Jackson of this generation and then some because of social media, etc., that I can sit back, do nothing, cheer on my boyfriend, and that's it. And I'll be on TV more than somebody performing. So, yes, it's cool. It's going to be fun. It'll be definitely interesting. And it would have been all that anyway, but then you add on Christmas Day. And I'm sure fans will rage and there'll be some Steeler fans claiming that they're not really dating. And maybe they'll break up before that game. Maybe they'll break up and you'll get a whole breakup song before that.
And maybe he gets covered by Patrick Queen and he gets shut down Christmas Day, and maybe there's a Christmas God, because honestly, that's really all I would want on Christmas Day is the Steelers to have a victory like they did against the Ravens that one year, where Antonio Brown reached over and I almost put a hole through my ceiling because I jumped up so high.
Yeah, that's the last moment of appreciating Antonio Brown, really. As a Steeler, it's kind of the last one that pops in my mind. But it almost feels like there's going to be a special moment. You have Taylor Swift, you have Christmas Day, you have two historic franchises, not only one going in the midst of the dynasty, but obviously the Steelers and what they represent, and the fan bases of both of these franchises are going to be so plugged in. They knew what they were doing and what teams they were picking. They know the ratings would be there no matter what. NFL Taylor Swift.
I know.
Have the Steelers fans involved, have a dynasty in the making still going on. The Chiefs had a great draft as well, so they're going to be obviously right in the mix still. You have everything you'd want right there, and it feels like something weird's going to happen. But of course, Taylor Swift, a rookie year, wins the Super Bowl, so she doesn't know any of the heartache the Steelers fans have been enduring the last 10 years.
I just want to say I have to work that day, and my record working during the Steelers playing is 2-42.
Wow.
So I don't know how the grace of God, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I'll blame myself. And I can't call off, like I said before pre-show.
Can you be sick?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I would try, but I work for the lovely state, so they actually frown
Okay.
upon it. But I don't know what I'm going to do. So, but honestly,
You can't
it's
get sick when you
proven-
work for the state. How about
Oh,
that?
yeah, not on Christmas Day because it's kind of a holiday. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's proven as soon as I get off the Cincinnati game, that's when the Steelers won and scored that one time when I was on my way home. As soon as I got off the property, that's one. I'll take that one chance.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I can guarantee you the Steelers are not going to be the Vegas odds favorite unless the season goes wild. It'd be hard for me to predict them to win. I do think that, honestly, even week 1 against Atlanta is a little bit of a crapshoot. Forget what they're doing with the backup QB and whether or not they should have drafted a 24-year-old. I think Kirk Cousins is going to light it up, and they're going to score a lot of points, especially at home. He was putting up points with Minnesota a couple years ago before he got hurt. That's the same type of thing in a dome. That is going to be immediately testing the Steelers' defense because they're going to have to be fast, be ready, and you're going to see a lot of deep passes thrown at the Steelers' secondary. So that right there could be a loss. Talking about 9-0, I would not be surprised if the Steelers lost week 1. I do think Denver's not going to be that great this year. But it could be a hard schedule for sure. But the Steelers have also had easy schedules in different years and not won in those years. And as we both know, the Steelers are going to lose games that you're going to sit there and say, how the hell do you lose to that team?
That was last year. That lovely 3-week span was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, yeah. You hope it doesn't happen for 3 straight weeks, which is why they get into that 9-10 win low.
But also too, I want the Steelers to start off good, starting off because we're slow starting, and I don't want to wait till the last 2 weeks of the season to cling on to a playoff hope like we have been and wait for everybody else. I want us to choose our own destiny, and I've been saying that the whole time on this show, and I'll keep saying it all year long. So I mean, seeding matters. The reason you can't punt games. The Steelers do this thing where, they get a winning record. They increase Tomlin's record. And they get in the playoffs, and it's better getting in than not. They were even a game out during the Mason and Duck year, for crying out loud. If there were 7 spots then, they would have got in that year. But they still punt games and lay eggs in games, and seeding matters. Getting a bye helps you when you're beat up after a 4 months grueling of a season and all those games that are played when you're playing 17, maybe 18 in the future. And getting an easier draw would certainly help you too, rather than going on the road to Buffalo in a snowstorm. That's not a benefit, even if you feel like you could beat them in a neutral field in the sun. That's not the case. It's going to be the winter. It's going to be snow. You don't want to have to go up there. So the Steelers need to take care of as much business as possible. And if they're in a situation in the last 5 weeks of the season where they got to win 3 or 4 to get a certain seed or even get in the playoffs, that's rough when you got your division rivals in there and then you got Taylor Swift. So I don't know who you're more scared of, the division rivals or Taylor Swift, but that's going to be a problem. And the speed of if you think the Steelers defense is going to be the fastest this year than 2010, then that's going to help you right away in week 1. I see a comment right there. That's what you need this year, but it also maybe depends on what you do with there's right now Cam Hayward's holding out, and I seen that. He's doing it because of that contract, probably.
And then it brings up the whole thing of whether you should pay him. I love Cam Hayward, but how good is he going to be 4 or 5 years from now? I mean, you're paying him for the future, not the past. If he's holding out for X number of dollars, they're going to bring him back and they're going to re-sign him to a long-term deal. I just could argue that it's not the smartest thing in the world, depending on how much you're giving him. And then you even go the offensive side of the ball. This is why I thought they shouldn't have drafted Najee Harris. This is a media debate years ago. Drafting a running back is very risky because they almost never sign that second deal. And if your offensive line is bad, it screws you. They drafted Najee. The O-line was bad. Again, he wasn't able to be fully healthy. And then you have a situation where now he's getting better and now the offensive line looks like it's better. But is he going to be there in the future to even allow you to, ripe the fruits of that labor? So it's just risky when you're playing with these contracts. But
I don't know Nolan on that 3-year extension. He'll be 38 years old.
That's what I'm saying. I think I wouldn't be
I love him. Don't get me wrong. I love him, but that 3 years extension, that's a lot of money that could go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't be surprised in terms of if he'll get it. I would not be shocked if I had to bet money. I think he probably will, but I wouldn't do it. And I love Cam Hayward. I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer, but again, 38 years old. He's already been hurt. He always misses games. He is a fine wine and gets better with age. But are you really Father Time's undefeated?
Yeah, no one's beat Father Time. Nobody.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Nobody does. LeBron James can't. Nobody does.
He will shift that to a 25. Well, maybe Omar Khan got stuff up his sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, I like Cam Hayward. I hope he is back. I'm sure they're trying to do it and they want to do it. And if I had to bet money, they're going to figure something out. And Omar Khan's smarter with the money and the math than I am. But journalists were not math majors. I'm just saying, depends on how much you're paying him when he gets to a certain age. That's all. And it also depends on how much guaranteed money you're given right away. It depends on how much you're going to be hooked into things later on. The NFL deals are different than other sports where you're not necessarily grouped into the whole deal and locked into the whole deal. It's really about the guaranteed money. So it'll depend on what they give him and how that works. But he definitely wants his money. And he wants to play a whole career with the Steelers. That kind of would be cool, especially if they could finally make a run for him. They did it early in his career.
Get an AFC championship victory would be great, and have TJ Watt get a playoff victory would be good too.
That would be nice. Yeah,
Like
it does feel like you're wasting a little, some of these players with not playoff success. All these individual hardware and numbers.
I mean, we can go back before we get off this show. I mean, we had the Killer Bees, and we have nothing, zero, nothing. Nothing with that one.
I was covering that Jacksonville playoff game. Bortles march up and down the field, and as much as everyone hated Todd Haley, I could argue the defense collapsed in that game. But the Killer Bees, you had the best. You had the best at each individual position. You could argue certainly one of the best at those positions, and you didn't really get a deep run out of it. They didn't all three together on the same team didn't get to a Super Bowl together.
I hope you're right, Nolan. I hope you're right.
I see Darwin's very, very optimistic fan there.
Yes, it's first time on the show. I don't believe we ever seen him before. So, Mr. Nolan, thank you for coming on and bringing that optimistic viewpoint of Steeler fanisms. So I appreciate it. Yeah, subscribe to the show. So So before we get out of here, real quick, I just want to promote the APWF show, June 23rd. Get your tickets. See me. It's going to be good at the S&T Bank Arena, Indiana, Pennsylvania. And we got 8 to 9 matches. And we have the NWA World Heavyweight Championship match, EC3 versus big time Bill Collier. And we have the best independent talent that's unsigned today. Will be there in Indiana, Pennsylvania, 14 years in the making. So I always give the plugs, and also to all the sponsors of the show right there, everybody. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring APWF Evolution. I appreciate it. I give him plugs on all the show because that's just how I am.
And you got the NWA title there? That's historic.
Yeah, he's going to have yes, he's going to have the NWA. Yes, it's never been defended in Indiana County.
I would imagine not.
No, and we never had the AWA title defended one time when Steve Carino had it, but we never had. This is probably the biggest match in the company's history. We had some WWE talent before. We had some guys to go into the WWE out of training, but this is something 14 years in the making. But this is a Steeler podcast, not a wrestling podcast. So I try to. It's the experience, and that's a Friday night show. Yeah. So Mark, thank you, Mark. You're out there. Say what you got to say, buddy. I know he's been saying some stuff.
Yeah, he got that heat. He got heat from that one fan, and I know he said he did did make him upset, but he did a great.
Yeah, he's been saying stuff. Oh, he's from Mexico. He's thank you. Nolan's from Mexico. Okay, yeah, he's still here. Yeah, he's still here, and we support you, Mark. Like I said before, and you're a Steeler fan, true and true. Very positive. Like I said, one of the most positive Steeler fans that I've ever met in my entire life. Even through the Tomlinisms and all that stuff, he is pro, and
I got to meet him then, because there are not many of those out there. I feel like he would get more negative as the years go by. So.
Look at that. There he goes. He's always. And we did a draft show, and he was up for like 20 some hours. Like, it was crazy. Those guys over in Australia love the draft, and they were full of knowledge. I live in Mexico. Nolan, thank you for your service, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So Pepper, thank you. But Mike, thank
Mike, you. Where can we see you at? What let's plug your where can we see you next?
Sure. So you can find me on social media, number one, which is the easiest place. So at Mike Asti 11, Mike ASTI 11, the same handle everywhere on social, so it's easy for you. But I'm writing for WV Sports Now with the Mountaineer coverage, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Yardbarker, a lot of Steelers stuff there. And then, of course, Sirius XM, a lot of shows there. I do have my Mic Drop podcast with Believe, and then available on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Google Play. You can just, there it is. So that's my my X, social, Instagram, whatever. It's all that same handle all through social media. And then you can find me everywhere you get your podcast there, but just by searching Mic Drop in any of those directories. And then I'm all over the place.
Pepper, thanks
I
you for
am
the
all
chat,
over.
Mike.
So no problem, guys. Definitely enjoyed it. Let me know if you need me to jump on again sometime soon.
You are now popped your cherry.
I guess for this show,
for the Dynasty Podcast, and I appreciate everything you've done, Mike. And we'll have all your links on the YouTube, and we'll hook you up with Mark from Steeler Nation Australia, because he does stuff all the time, and he is such a good dude. He just had Brian McFadden on the show last week.
Okay, so, I actually am going to be speaking to Brian McFadden on a show coming up, but Brian's a great guy. I've had him on a bunch of shows in the past, from the Trib to now, and he does a lot of these. So he's a great guy. And he actually was kind of stirring things up a week ago, acting like he knew who the Steelers were going to be bringing in. That hasn't happened yet. But yeah, Brian's a great guy for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to try to get him on. We've had a few, but like I said, we're not your typical Steeler podcast. I get a little animated, but this is the first time we actually had a real journalist in the house, and I appreciate you, Mike, so much. So
no problem. Thank
you so much, and everybody subscribe to all his stuff. I will link it in the Dynasty YouTube channel and Facebook. And I appreciate everybody with your comments tonight. Thank you so much. And Steeler Nation Australia will get in touch with you, Mike, and Mike will get in touch with you, and it'll be like an overseas kind of thing. We'll just be the mediator and stuff like that. So yeah, so he says 100. He said 100%. Yeah, he like I said, the most positive Steeler person I know. Well, we're all positive, until I lose and I get a little irate, but that's okay. But
are you positive sober, or are you positive not sober? Is the question.
Well, when TJ Watt blew his tricep against Cincinnati, I thought I was having a coronary, because my wife was like, "Oh my God," and it was like the screaming death of a Viking, losing. And I just, I don't like it when they lose. And I understand the Steelers can't win them all. I don't pick the Steelers to win the Super Bowl all the time, Mike.
Okay.
But you know what? I just want to see them win a playoff. And
it's been a minute. It's been a minute since a playoff. Yeah.
Yes.
Playoffs, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Can we win another game?
No, you're a real fan. You're a real fan, Mark. You're a real fan. So everybody, thank you. Like I said, Mike, thank you so much. Everybody have a great night, and we will see you guys next Wednesday at 9:00. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.